of syndicated radio. So we're going, Jack typically does stuff out of Nashville as well. So he's kind of all over the place, but he's been in Finland for a while now. And we're going to talk about some of the stuff he does, because for some of you guys out there that don't know about this, also he's going to be very knowledgeable on copyright, since we're talking about music. He owns a number of production libraries. Production libraries are something that radio stations use, and they are basically content, music beds, sweepers, things of that nature that are already pre-produced, and they are given to radio stations on barter. So he basically sells them for commercial time. And it's another revenue avenue that a lot of you guys are not familiar with, and it works in the TV business the same way. If you watch a news show probably on TV, you see some of the old commercials that run towards the back of the network news or whatever. It's because they have bartered for some of these production libraries and imaging parts and things of that nature that you are not aware of that you are seeing. And Jack has been a master of producing some of this stuff for many, many years. And he has a number of different formats that he does. I know right now he's a busy guy because he's getting ready to work on, is it the Country Music Awards, Jack? Is that what you're working on tonight?
Yeah, the ACMs.
Yeah, so welcome, Jack, and of course, Doc. Hope you're doing well there in Hawaii. Looks like things are getting a little better in Hawaii. You guys got removed off of our travel ban here in Chicago, so you don't have to quarantine for right now if you come here for 14 days.
Okay, good. I'm coming to eat. Yeah. That's all I'm coming for.
Yeah, come on down. Right, take that flight. But Jack is actually 8 hours ahead of us, so you are way away from Chicago, coming to us from Finland. You may be the furthest guest we've had in a while here on the show. So welcome, my friend. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah. That looks like a really nice studio you got set up back there. You want to tell us about a little bit of the gear you've got that we're getting to look at?
Well, what you can see, I guess you were just telling me that you can't see all of it, but yeah, I mean, I'm big fan of both analog and the latest stuff. So lately, I think I've gone really hybrid. So I use a lot of I'm pretty much around Pro Tools and Logic these days, running on a Mac, and I use all the native instrument stuff, the wave stuff, and then some a little bit more esoteric, but I still love the analog. So I have the, let's see, we got the Avalon 747 SPs and
nice.
And some. Actually, I have the ADL600, which I love on all the voiceover work people send me. It's got 6 tubes in it. So
nice.
That's a
yeah,
nice
tubes
little
are the way to go.
up.
That definitely warms it up a little bit. Warm it up, Chris.
Yeah.
Warm it up. Yeah. So you are definitely a Mac guy as well. I mean, it seems like everybody we have on the show, for the majority of the people that we've had, especially if they're in a little more technical end, they are all Mac users. So, we're going to have a big change coming. We've got the new chip coming from Apple, and we're going to have to see, how soon everything will work with that. I mean, there's going to be a compatibility period here like there always is. But I was hoping they were going to announce a new computer yesterday when they had their thing, but it didn't quite happen. It just seemed like iPads and watches. So I guess we got to wait till, I don't know, what's the next big conference that they do, Doc? October. So I don't know if they're doing computers then or not. We'll see.
It's always September is iDevices. October is also iDevices because the iPad Pros. And then the computers and stuff normally pop out in like November and May. So you got
we got a ways to go.
Yeah.
So very cool.
But my money is everything is going to work. If it's iPad working right now, it'll work with a new Mac because it's the exact same chip. Scott doesn't believe me, but I'm a programmer.
From your ear or from your mouth to God's ears, that will be the case, because I don't ever recall anything working for at least 6 months after they have a changeover, and nobody's going to trust the first generation of anything. So I think we're still like 2 years away from seeing all this stuff compatible.
Yeah, but see, everyone keeps missing the fact it's not the first generation. We've been making ARM-based iPhones and iPads for 12 years. Not 12. Not 2. 12.
How many?
12. So therefore, all of the what you need to know how to do in order to make apps for ARM chips, which will be Apple Silicon, already exists. If Serato works on iPad, which it does, it will work on the
It
brand
doesn't
new
work
Macs.
on iPad. You can't run Serato on. There is a remote that you can
I
run
got
on the
it.
iPad
Yes, and
that
that's what
allows
I
you to
know.
run the sampler buttons, but you can't run Serato on the iPad. So
will
it's
work.
good. All right.
Not
Well,
yet.
DJ
Doc is on record
algorithms.
right
DJ
now
already
as
works. There's about 19 DJ apps, so they already work. Serato already knows how. They just didn't do it because they didn't think it was important yet. But it's coming. Just trust me. I put money on it.
all right. Well, I'm hoping you're right.
I'm always right.
I love. I take an iPad out to every event with me. I love it, and I swear by them. So I'm hoping that's the case, and maybe we will be able to run Serato off of an iPad. That'd be very cool. So Jack, tell me a little bit about this show that you're working on now for the Country Music Awards. What do you do for that exactly? Because a lot of the guys aren't familiar with some of the syndicated programming and things of that nature. I'd like you to talk a little bit about that today.
Sure. So I've been producing Nashville Minute since I think 2012, and it's basically a feature. Comes twice a day, and it's about current stuff, what's going on in country music and especially Nashville, and usually involves little artist bits and bytes. So it's like a gazette, it's more about current. It's not really news necessarily, but whenever we have big events like this, of course, everybody wants the stuff by AM tomorrow. So.
Right. So everything that you're going to grab tonight and produce is going to air tomorrow.
Exactly.
So it's current and sound like the stations put this stuff together themselves.
Exactly. So it's going to run on my East Coast stations starting at 5 a.m. Eastern time. So by then they have to have it ready.
Right. And it's got to get to the production director so he can get the stuff loaded up, and everybody makes it sound like they did all that work right then and there. So that's how that works, everybody.
What's the coolest part about this is the fact that you're actually all the way in Finland, but you're going to get all of this stuff done and sent out, and people are going to hear it in their market as if the people in their market actually made it. And I think the amount of not just skill behind that is one thing, and you always applaud it for that, but I think people really underestimate the technology because I don't think people realize how big a deal this is. Like back in the day, this would have been forever. Even stuff that we used to do, like, oh, so-and-so reporter is coming to you from a satellite. That was crazy, and it was expensive, and it required 2 humongous trucks and a bunch of gear and feet. And I mean, I won't say feet, I take it back. Miles, or in Finland, kilometers of wiring. And now you can go do all of this stuff, basically from your desk, in Helsinki and send it back to, Brooklyn, and nobody would know the difference.
Yeah. You need an ISDN line too, if,
back then,
in previous days.
ISDN lines. Oh, the Zephyr. I hated those things.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
I used to want to beat the Zephyr up. Is it going to work today? And then my buddy would just, pow! It's working. Okay, don't touch nothing.
Exactly. But yeah, so you've got all these prepackaged, basically, programs that you're going to send to them.
Yeah, so they can do like what they call the brown bag version if they want. So we have, I have my own host, Sam Alex, who's actually based in Nashville. So he's actually going to go out there and do interviews live, and then he sends me back some audio, and then I repackage it with whatever scripts I decide to use and which artist audio I'm going to use, and then basically create new stuff out of it.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that Jack has been very well known for many years was the production libraries that I was talking about. And the production library, I actually was fortunate enough to work with Jack for a number of years doing some of these for the King Size brand. But, I think it's some really cool, advanced technology back then. We'd be shipping stuff back and forth, but you'd get all these pre-programmed, basically like sound designer parts and beds and things of that nature. And let's talk about a little bit of the copyright and what's involved in that, because we've had so many issues with DJs with copyright, with music playing on Facebook and on other services. Twitch is now starting to kind of crack down a little bit. There's a lot of changeover. So, guys, we've been telling you Mixcloud for a long time now. You got to listen to us. But, I'm just kind of curious. Can you talk a little bit about the copyright and like the spiders that detect the music and everything, and what's involved in putting that together from the music company's end in order to be able to be accurate in what they're assessing? Because I know one of the big things that I've noticed, I've had some copyright strikes over the years here, and typically it comes up and it's not even the song that they're claiming it is. So like they send me a copyright strike and they say, oh, that's James Brown's sample of whatever the case may be. And in reality, I didn't even play a James Brown record. So talk about a little bit about the spiders, what's out there and how that technology works. And, what you guys as a music company have to do to protect your rights to your copyrighted work.
Well, that's actually a deep question, because I think there's no one answer, because everybody's kind of doing it their own way what comes to protecting it, because it's not really like there is one common front, if you will. It seems that it has in the recent years, when especially YouTube and Facebook came around, there's been a lot of sort of copyright questioning, indeed, especially with music, and there are actually now organizations that do exactly that. They license for you if you're a YouTuber or other social media user and you want to use licensed music. So they basically do the whole package for you. So if you want to use something on your fitness video that you send out every Monday, then you can license that music for that. I have not done that, but I assume that, it's not necessarily that expensive if it's limited use.
Right.
What comes to commercial radio and TV, of course, everything is most likely somehow watermarked in some way.
What's involved in a watermark? How did they put a watermark into the music? And then I know that there's a system, because we had it for radio, that detected everything that is basically played, and that's how they're able to chart music and know how many times a record was played, so that they can go back and report that and know what the hot records are. But what is involved in actually putting the watermark into your music? What do they do? How does that work?
Well, there's different, again, there's at least 3 different systems, and one of them is the kind that I sort of grew up with, which was that you had to very much like, it's basically uses the same algorithm as Shazam. So it basically makes a dynamic kind of a dynamic frequency map of the music, which doesn't change when you change the pitch. So for instance, if you're a DJ and you change the pitch, it still follows the same amplitude mapping. And
so I don't want to interrupt you on this, but basically, yes. So all you DJs that think you're going to get away with it because you're going to speed your music up and change the pitch a little bit, it's not going to detect, it's not going to deter the spider from catching.
I don't know why people ever believe that. That one was so crazy. It's super funny.
Maybe 10 years ago, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Even then, it was hard because DGS, right? DGS would pick up our spins in our mix shows, and we were always pitching songs in the mix shows. So as far as I know, back in 93, 94, when we were doing mix shows on the air, the songs would still get to spin. So, and we would be pitched way up. So yeah, And then the next gen was invented by Nagra. Nagra's been making recordings since filming Godzilla back when you had the big, reel to reel on the chest and a guy with the boom pole walking around the film set. So Nagra's been in audio since audio's been audio. I don't know why anybody thinks they could beat them.
That's right, Nagra, the most precise recorder in the world. But yeah, I mean,
Frankie's early.
And then there's ways to the way that works is that you need to actually have your music or sounds ingested by the system. So there is that process. You go to the organization's website, and then you basically have a backend access, and then you have to send in your files. So there's that, and it's time consuming. So if you're doing a lot of tracks, then you better have an assistant, because you're not gonna ever get anything out. Right. Then there are some organizations that have, and companies that provide the service in a way that you basically send them the music, and then they'll do the rest. And then there's also time delay. So, for instance, there are a lot of times if you have something that has to go out tomorrow, I can't do that. So then you just do it the week after or whatever.
Right.
But there's several different systems, and then there's the old system, the stamping of the beginning of the track, which is still used on records, but that's pretty much when you know that you're going to play the whole track over. But that's kind of, I think, I would say that technology is giving away for the new much more accurate detections.
Well, the reason I bring this up, I want guys to understand how this technology works and what's involved with it, because everybody thinks that, oh, I can beat the system if I do this, or I can beat the system if I do that, but that's really not the case. I mean, this stuff is pretty tried and true. And, I know that you've been involved in the production library business for a long time. And I know you guys have to be able to protect your information and your copyright, because let's face it, what's to stop a radio station from sharing that with another radio station just because they're in the same group or the same cluster? I mean, there's a trust issue there that, okay, well, if I'm going to give you this library to use, it's only for your station. But hey, I work on 7 stations in my cluster. Am I allowed to use it on all 7 stations in my cluster, or am I only allowed to use it on the 1 station in my cluster?
Right. Well, again, that's something. It's a trust issue, number one, of course. But number 2 is that nowadays we can detect these things, and if there's any reason to believe, then they start some kind of investigation, and then you better not have that there.
Right.
So,
of course,
it's but in the let's say in the years that I've been in this business, I've actually, maybe I've actually had maybe 3 or 4 times that I had to, knock on the door,
Yeah. And I got you. I mean, most people are usually it's a case of, there's been a change in position there or whatever, and somebody ends up with a disc that they don't know anything about, and they just assume it's theirs to use. So, I mean, it's usually a pretty innocent situation. But, the reason I bring it up, I just want guys to be aware of the technology that's out there, and that's a part of how Facebook detects what we are playing on the air, and, in order to silence us or in some cases shut the channel down. And now we've got all these changes coming in October with Facebook, rules and policies and all that good stuff. And there's been some different conversation I've seen over the last couple of days, and I really need to study it a little bit more before I really go into detail on it. But, I think they still want to allow people to have some music in their events, but it can't be like a concert performance. It can't be a DJ set. They just don't want it to be music driven. So if it's a part of something that's happening, that's one thing. But if it's a part of really it's all about the music. That's where they're going to draw the line, supposedly. Now, I don't know how their technology will do that, but, you don't want to find out the hard way. So that's a little bit about what's coming. Doc, I don't know if are you a little bit more in tune with how that's going to work, or do you have any ideas?
Yeah, so it's weird to say this on the DJ's live streaming show, but when I create my content, the music is there for an add-on. That's not the content. My content is what I'm about to tell you. So
Right.
I add music as a benefit. If I took all the music and put it in the corner for that particular thing, it doesn't affect anything. If you're playing video game and you're playing music in the background in order to try to, I don't know, make people listen to your channel because you can curate the best playlist, you're cheating. What you were supposed to be doing was bringing people to your channel because you're good at Call of Duty, not because you can curate a pretty sick, playlist. And then the people that are watching are probably not actually watching. They just got it on because they want to hear the music. And so therefore you created the hell that you're about to run into. Right. So a lot of people don't understand that, and I get it. I feel for all of us that came from doing clubs with lots and lots of people. And so now we want to do it online with lots and lots of people. But again, you can avoid that by just doing it yourself. If you are as big as you told everybody that you were when you were getting yourself hired for gigs, you can send an email to all of the people that will come to your parties and they will watch you on your website and you're good. And if you're not, then you just got sold out because the game was to be told and never sold. And so, unfortunately, what we're running into is a lot of people running into their own limitations. Now, you can license songs for $8 a pop from a company like Licked, or there's various others out there. So if you really, really bought that life and you have, say, 100 song rotation right now, you can probably, at under 50,000 people, which is most, it's roughly around $8 to $20 a pop. So in theory, for about $2,000, you can license every single song and spend all day on Facebook. And when they say something, you just send them a copy of your license and you're square. Yeah. But nobody wants to do that. They want to make money without putting anything into it until Facebook comes up with the $20 a month or $10 a month or whatever it is that says play whatever you want. We got you covered, but you will pay us.
Which I wish they would just do.
It's coming.
Let's face it. It probably is coming. There's a lot of people that put up, like battles of songs and stuff. They're using a YouTube song and they're basically just taking the video and posting it on Facebook like, hey, what's better, this artist or this artist? That's all going to be going away.
What Versus TV did was genius. I don't know if you followed them. This weekend, they probably had the best verses ever. They had Gladys Knight versus Patti LaBelle.
It's been all over, yeah.
Yo, I was in the house
with
doing
Dionne
dances.
Warwick popping in. Okay, yeah, it doesn't get any better than that, but that was cool.
What Versus did was smart. Versus was like they invented something out of nothing. Here we are, the pandemic. Everybody's stuck at home, very much opinionated, and they go, "Hey, we're going to call these artists and say, hey, let's do it." And they started doing Instagram at first, and then they found themselves getting in trouble. So then they said, well, let's just turn it into a thing. Time to promote, time to get all the songs cleared, artists themselves. Apple Music's involved now. Once Apple's involved, the license is square. So, if you put in the footwork, you could get it done. If you really want to be the guy on YouTube that compares hip-hop tracks from the 90s, you could put in the work, son, and you could get it done. And right now, because you're bringing attention back to older songs that then people would then in turn go spin on Spotify that will get those older artists paid. You could probably get this for nothing. Hey, we're going to pay you on the back end. You could take 50% of the money that we're not making at all right now. And they'll be like, yeah, that's bigger than anything we get from a ASCAP spin. All right, I'll take it. You just got to put in the work, but no one's asking. They're just trying to take and then being mad when their take gets taken. Sorry, soapbox over.
Yeah. Well, have you thought about putting your production libraries up available to make them available to different producers of video content and things of that nature, where they could just go in and either pay a monthly fee for those or, do some sort of an arrangement with you guys? Or I don't know if it'd be by song, like, let's say you wanted a production bed.
Yeah, well, it's a very saturated market right now. So I'm thinking about putting something out there. So right now I'm sort of in between projects. But yes, I'm sitting on a lot of stuff. So yes, I should. But I also want to do something new because I think today's productions also need something a little bit different. So more maybe modular things, so that you have like thematic stuff, and then you can just have like breakdowns and stems and different mix outs.
That's become very popular. Everybody wants the stems now.
Yes,
that is huge because that's giving the DJs the opportunity to remix the stuff, rework it, and that's what they want to do. They get that unique sound.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do a library of bongos, so they can just have the stem of left or the right.
Yeah, there you go.
you know what's funny is
they want the left or the right. They don't want both. They only want one.
There is okay, there's Audio Jungle and from Envato. There's like Epidemic Sound, Pond 5. There's all these places to get stuff. But unfortunately, a lot of the creators that are created for that, they don't come from that old school radio DJ sort of like experience. So the stingers and the laser hits and all of this stuff that exists in those are horrible. They're not of the same ilk of the production library, say, that I was used to using like at a radio station. So I've been
like Jack has.
Huh? Yeah.
Like Jack has.
I'm trying to remember the name of the one we have. It might have been DeWolf or something like that. I forget what it was, but we had a really big, production library, and the needle drop was, I think, like $75 a pop. I mean, it was expensive or whatever at the time, but I mean, and that was just for, I mean, it was like, it was $80, whatever. But I've been waiting for somebody for the YouTube creator community. Like, we're the most pervasive creators out there, and I think with everybody that's making stuff still want to come in at that crazy price, not realizing the economy of scale. There's literally almost a billion new videos posted every single day on YouTube. Yeah. So bring the price down, work in the economy of scales, let guys that are really producing on YouTube buy the stuff so they're not going to get slapped. And these production library companies will make their money back probably more than if every station in the world bought their stuff, because stations are dying, unfortunately, and the disambiguated creator is growing. So a lot of people just, you got to switch that look, figure out what your price point is. I know a lot of guys that will buy a dope sweeper for $5-6 because they're buying it from Envato. And unfortunately, they're produced bad. They're not of good quality, So again, Jack, you might have some old stuff that seems outdated, but because 80s, 90s retro is the thing, just put it out. Yeah. 80s, 90s retro, radio stings and sweeps. You can buy any one of these for $10 a pop, and then just send me my commission.
So here's my question for Jack, and that is, so if you were to do this, do you have to make the deal with a specific streaming source? Like, would you have to license this with YouTube so that they could catch your violations in terms of if people are using it with no copyright? Because I'm guessing that there must be an agreement with some of these companies tied to the streaming source.
Yeah, I mean, what I know is YouTube has its own sort of a broker. Yes. I can get you all the info later. Yeah. I haven't dealt with them right now because I haven't really explored that platform. But in general, I think that's the way it is, and I guess it makes sense too because they have their own. Who else can detect better than YouTube itself what's on there, which they don't necessarily do that well on some other things, but but they in general they
get the DJs, I can tell you that.
Yeah, they get the DJs. Yeah, whatever. It's like
that's because DJs are prolific, so it makes it easier to catch when there's more of them there.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, I would definitely. If I were to specifically do a product that I want to be for YouTubers, for instance, I would definitely seek out to do some kind of either a blanket price method. If it's let's say a scalable product, and usually that's the best way to do it, is that you just tell them like, hey, you pay the same, but next month you have 150 more sounds.
Yeah.
And
it's just a progressive, basically like a pool. You're going to get a starting pack, and then next month we're going to add to it and add to it and add to it, which is how your production libraries have been done over the years. You get a great starting package, and then every month you're going to get freshened up.
Right.
So, yeah.
Or there might be some kind of a interesting avenue to that, but I can't tell you yet.
Of course.
But there are other ways. But yeah, essentially that's the price structure should be, and I second to Doc that it has to be affordable, especially if it's scalable. Yeah. So, but also a lot of those libraries that seem inexpensive, like Envatos, etc. They become expensive when you start buying a lot.
Yep.
And you're probably going to get copyright strikes even if you buy that stuff.
I have gotten copyright with Envato, but because they give you the license when you download the file, you just take that license and upload it, and it's normally cleared within 30 minutes.
Gotcha.
Okay. Well, the other part of that is, or more the creative part that I'm advocating is that when you do that, that there's probably 1,000 other guys who are using exactly the same music. So when you have a smaller library, you have more exclusivity. And
True.
perhaps in the future libraries, you might even have a limited number of participants. So let's say if I did something like that and I wanted to really have an exclusive collection of my golden beats for the 80s and 90s that I remake from all the goodies that I have, and I wanted to give it to all the DJs, maybe I give it to only 500 DJs.
Yeah. Well, it's like market exclusive, and that's something that we had in the production, in the radio business. You didn't want to have the stuff that you were playing on your station playing on the station next door. So it was all done as market exclusive. So it was an incentive for them to buy up the library, whether they were going to use it or not, because they were going to try to keep it out of their competitors' hands so that they couldn't get a good product as well.
Well, and that happened also too, even with the guys like St. John or John Edwards, or the guys that would do the imaging tags. And my partner JP from the Funk Evangelist crew, he reminded me we used Continuous Climax. I remember it had a crazy name. It was Continuous Climax for Media Lane, and so even then, I remember when we decided that we were going to use St. John for our
St. John, man, he's the bomb.
Was one, he came out of Hawaii. We just loved hanging out. He's super funny, but everybody was using Edwards at the time, and we were like, "Oh, if we use St. John's, we'll just sound different," because everybody was using Edwards at the time, and and then more and more people came out of that, and now, like, there's even girls on Fiverr that are doing it because everybody wants to have a female now.
Yeah, or better yet, a British female.
Yeah, that seems to be the hot one.
Indeed.
Right now. Yeah. That seems to be.
I'll have to get one of the voiceover guys to come on the air. One of our shows, we'll do that. I'll bring on a voiceover artist. And as a matter of fact, like next week, we've got Max Myrick joining us. Max was probably involved in the biggest radio war in Chicago history, which was V103 and WGCI. Max was the operations manager. He's been a program director at Sirius XM, so he's very knowledgeable. We're going to have him on, and we'll probably end up, I'll work on getting one of the voiceover artists, and I kind of know who I want to do that with. I'll have to reach out to them and make that happen, because I think that's another avenue that a lot of guys don't know about. I mean, they've toyed with the idea, and a lot of guys are ordering stuff. They go on and buy from these services online that sell you a drop for $7 or $8, whatever the case may be. But I'm curious, Jack, how do they get a production library that's going to allow them to do that? Like 100 guys come in, he produces with the same work parts, 100 different drops for them, sells them for $6 or $7 or $8, whatever the case is. And then how does he get a licensing deal for those sweepers from the company? I mean, I don't know how he pulls that one off, because these are radio exclusive, market exclusive. How are you going to pass that off to everybody?
I think those guys who do it with those prices, they don't.
I think they cheat.
I think they just they basically just trying to sell as much as they can, and then they're gone the next year, or something like that. So it's a completely different model. I mean, you can't. I would have really big doubts if that is any kind of, that has a profitability over time. I mean, yes. I mean, there's been cheap music libraries as long as I know. I mean, even back when we started. I mean, there's always been somebody who's like, hey, Christmas tracks for
exactly
$2.99, all the Christmas tracks you ever need,
all the tracks you could ever want.
Yeah, but it's always holidays. Have you noticed?
Yeah,
at least back then it was always because it's the busy time of the year, and if you're a busy guy in a production department,
you did beds, definitely did. I mean, you're producing hundreds of commercials for different clients, and you don't want the same track. I mean, that was the one thing that we tried to avoid, is we didn't want to use the same music on two different clients' spot. So, we would keep a note on everything, put a Post-it on the disc or whatever. This is for this client, and you knew, and you could go back and use it again if the client liked it, but you wanted to make sure you didn't offer that to somebody else. So, yeah, you need variety.
You know what's funny is the one that sticks out now because it's so prolific. If you could go to buy almost any package, you could walk into any store right now, be it Tesco, Target, Walmart, whatever, and you can find a picture of a product that happens to have a, say, mid-20s Asian girl on it. It's the same girl. She is the most #1 downloaded face on stock photo stuff. And when you see it, you'll be like, yep, I know exactly who you're talking about, because she's prolific. And we always joke about it whenever we see her on packagings or instruction manuals or whatever. And it's like, I wonder, how, if she did her own picture, she's getting paid for this, because if so, she's a billionaire. If not, whoever was smart enough to suck her into doing it, because she is prolific. All the dentists, any dentist ad, it's a picture of her. She's in so many dental ads, it's not funny, because she has really nice teeth. And she's on tech products. I've seen her on exercise products, whatever. And so that's what happens to music stuff too, when everybody is downloading from the same place. I love Epidemic. They're great, but sometimes what you're getting is, say my brother June's over here producing a bunch of music and stuff, and the artist selected these 10 tracks. The other 10 tracks that the artist didn't select, he says, okay, I'll send that to Envato or Pond 5 or wherever, and that's where it becomes.
Yeah.
So you're already picking from people's, not even B-sides, you're picking
you're
from
getting the
their
C-side.
C-sides. It's not the A-side or the one B-side, JP. They're picking the C-side.
You're getting the C-side. I mean, I've listened to some of these libraries, and you go through, and it's like, oh, man, I don't want to use that.
I think we're more picky than normal, though. I think most people love it, but... yeah. So, Jack, we waited for you to come through because people that have discerning taste, the Champagne production library, I'm there. And I don't even drink Sprite. It's got to be some, good big bubbles, made from Ronda Pump grapes, the real deal.
Yeah, it's funny that there seems to be this idea. I've also seen lately a lot of production libraries coming out on the market, and they all want to sound like a movie library.
Yeah,
they all want to sound like big
cinematic
Hollywood cinematic, and it's just kind of mind-boggling to me that are there really that many movies indie movies made that want that kind of soundtrack? Do they want that?
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, sometimes I think you're better off just downloading, if they have the package and they put the stems out there, just take the beat track off the stem and don't go with the mixed version. They got too many horns. It's so busy. It's you're distracting from the message you're trying to get here or whatever you're using for. I would rather just have some really nice 808 kick, going. And maybe a couple cymbals on it and a little ride, and it sounds good to me. I mean, it's enough to just kind of carry what you're doing. And
that's funny, JP. JP mentioned John Fontaine in a world. I'm waiting for the new version of him to come out. But yes, that is exactly right. The other one, Scott, that kills me is it's always you go and you look for island or tropical, and you get this extra ridiculously happy, like supposed to be Hawaiian style track, but it has a lot of like Glockets feels. We don't have any Glockets feels in Hawaii. It's like ding.
What
ding,
I've noticed
ding,
that
ding.
the children's music has become the influential, what they call uplifting corporate.
Yes.
If you go to a category, I swear the same tracks are under children and inspiring corporate.
100. That's exactly what I was talking about. The overuse of xylophones and glockenspiels. That's the one.
Oh, and whistle.
Yes. You got it, Jack. You nailed it. It kills me.
That's why he's the master.
The glockenspiel and the whistle.
And then he even pronounces it right. I'll say it wrong. So it's funny because like I'll look for something that says tropical because I need it to seem, and I'm like, bro, that sounds nothing like what we listen to, not at all. So now I'm going around trying to find all of the Hawaii music creators. Like, bro, you can make a mint if you generated real island music and put it on the thing. Even the versions of reggae, it's not us. It's some kids in Russia making it. So it sounds nothing like reggae at all, not even close. And I'm like, bruh. Like, what are you
That's
doing?
like half the remixes. I mean, now it's so popular even for the DJs to get all these remix services, from all their record pools or whatever. And, the versions that come out, I mean, they've just got them so twisted. It's like, what? People want to hear the original song. They want to hear, like what the song sounds like in so many cases. That's not always the case if you're working in the right club. But, if you're out at even at a wedding reception, for crying out loud, and you're going to play a MJ record, they want to know the song. They want to hear it the way it came out. So, when you go in there and put all this crazy beat behind it and change the pitch up and, he no longer sounds like himself, it's not as popular.
I think people did remix services because they thought that remixing like heavily was going to stop you from getting hit. And so I think people downloading and posting them all on YouTube, a lot of people assume that like, a heavily remixed track will stop you from getting hit. And that's not the case. Like real remixes have been sanctioned. Other than that, you're still getting the hit. And I just think it became prolific because they thought that was a way around YouTube's duplicate service, which is what YouTube uses until they made their own. They started with duplicate and then they added their own thing to it. And now they got the Google one that's just impeccable. And again, people are like, well, how can they catch it so fast? I'm like, you ever heard of Google Play Music, dude? And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, they're a music store, dummy. They know what the song sounds like. Hello. It's not that hard. Compare this library to that library. If there's anything within 80% correct, let me know about it. All right, winner. That's that song right there.
Yeah. Well, Jack, I
that's
really
so true.
appreciate. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that I want to add to that I feel exactly the same thing with the remixes that I've been hearing lately. Is that there's almost this like they follow this same formula, and when I think of a good remix, I want to hear something that you take my song and you make it into even more of that song, if that makes sense. So it's like you find a dimension within what I've already created. That's a good remix.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll see if I can find this thing, and there's two versions of it. One of it is called the Martin Garrix formula, and the guy took basically 6 Martin Garrix songs and lined them up and muted the various parts, and you could not tell the song changed. And there's another one exactly like that about country music, because there's a country music formula, and the guy took and put 6 country music songs. They're all completely different. And he muted out various parts. And he goes, the guys are killing you with #1 songs that are so formulaic, but the people that listen don't even notice. And he literally put all the songs together and he muted different parts. And you couldn't tell where the song was changing, because a formula is a formula. And when you know it works, it works. So, Jack, you're 100% correct.
Thank you.
Well, Jack, I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you got a busy schedule. You're working all night to get ready for the morning with the music awards coming up. So I'm going to let you go back to your production. But I appreciate your being here, and look forward. Love to see you putting out one of these libraries for us, because I know that there's a lot of people that could use that sort of thing and that they're looking for that. So I wish you the best with that. And Doc, always a pleasure joining you from Hawaii. So we'll let you go back to work, Jack. And it's late there. It's getting later, and you're going to be up all night, pulling the all-nighter. We love that.
So I'll be listening to the station, country music station, here tomorrow to see if I hear any of your promos.
Absolutely.
All right.
As much as it'll pain me, but just for support, because you came and visited me. I tease my sister-in-law because she loves country music, but I'm like, yeah, I'm going to listen tomorrow just to see if they bought your stuff.
You know what you get when you play a country western song backwards, right?
Dog, truck, girlfriend left.
Exactly. Everything comes back.
And your wife back.
And then there you go.
All right, guys. You guys have a great.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's been a pleasure, and I promise you this: when my product comes out, I'm going to tell you first.
We appreciate that. We would expect nothing less. We'll do a preview for you when you're ready. Okay, we'll have you back on.
Absolutely.
So thanks, guys. Everybody, it's from Chicago, from Hawaii, and Jack joining us from Finland. We're in Finland exactly. What town?
I'm south, like right next to. It's a suburb of Helsinki. So
Helsinki, Finland.
Espoo,
I just
Finland.
guessed it.
Well, we'll see you when you get back to Nashville. Okay.
Hey, Scott. So you know what this means? We're finished.
It means we're done.
No, you missed it. We're finished. Get it? Thank you, Jack.
We're finished. Yes, we're finished. That's the hockey joke. All Swedish, no finish. Yeah.
Never finish.
That's for the guys that can't score. All Swedish, no finish.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
All right, guys. All right, guys. Have a great week. We'll talk to you guys next week. We do this every Wednesday, 2:00 Chicago time. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification button. You know how we do it. And we'll look forward to seeing you on DJ's live streaming next week. Have a great week, everybody.
Aloha.